Hi folks, so we are here to talk about the Lucy Letby trial, week 13. So this is a brief summary of what went on in court. Now, the courts were looking at child H. If you remember, Letby has been charged with the attempted murder of child H. A doctor gave evidence and said there was no clear explanation as to why the second collapse in 24 hours had happened. And one of the nurses also gave evidence and was not sure if Letby had been left alone. So they're trying to recall evidence from like over 5 years ago. Another nurse confirmed that Letby was a hard worker, and all of them are very upset when children are seriously ill and when babies die. I mean, it is to be expected, but that doesn't mean it's an easy thing to deal with emotionally. An expert doctor gave some evidence as well and said medication, or admitted that the medication to reduce the stiff lungs in child H was given rather late, and the second drain was actually put in the wrong place. So that's quite a major bit of evidence. They then moved on to child I. Now, Letby has been charged with the murder of child I, and the prosecution are alleging that this happened on the fourth attempt. So she had tried 3 times prior to child I dying. Now, child I was born premature, 27 weeks old, 2 pounds, 2 ounces. So that's very, very small. Prosecution alleged that there was air in the feed tube and in the blood. And she has been accused of the attempted murder on the 30th of September, 12th and 13th of October, and then the actual murder later on in October towards the end. I think it was the 23rd. So the doctor said that, child I had collapsed. The parents were called to the hospital and found that their child was being resuscitated. They were taken into a private room. So this is normal in hospitals when somebody dies. It's a room you don't want to be let into. And Letby asked the parents whether they wanted to have photos with the baby, which I think is quite common. And to bath the child as well. Letby did some Facebook searches, that was brought up in court as well, on the mother of child I on Facebook, and this was on the 5th of October, so before the second and third attempted murder charge and the murder charge, the 5th of November, which is after child I died, and the 26th of May the following year in 2016. Evidence was also discussed about Letby being keen to work extra shifts. She was one of 3 Band 5 nurses that had completed the neonatal course required. They also gave some evidence in court about how child I had had a swollen tummy, and they believe that that was caused by air and milk. So Letby was very upset and about child I's death. The trainee doctor remembers her crying with another nurse. Child I was well and then unwell, and the doctor said, well, it was very sad, it was very frustrating that this had happened, because they thought, even though child I was premature, that child I was okay. Letby had asked to observe child I before she collapsed. And a nurse came back and saw child I behind a canopy, some kind of, I guess, hospital equipment, and looked at child I and could see how critically ill she was. And then a crash team was called. Letby did some CPR, and child I had recovered, so the resuscitation worked. So in kind of court, they are dotting about a little bit with child I, and they're talking about the various attempts as well as the actual alleged murder. So tune in next week and we can see what has happened, whether there's further evidence on child I and whether we have moved on to child J. What you do need to remember as well is this is only the prosecution case. We have got the defence case to go through. So tomorrow it's the 1st of February, and we're already into, this was week 13, we're going to be into week 14 next week. So presumably the jury are making copious notes, because otherwise they're going to forget. And remember, the way it works, the prosecution give all their evidence and the defence cross-examine, then the defence bring out their witnesses and the prosecution cross-examine. You will then have summing up from the prosecution. You will have summing up from the defence. This is going to take days, each of those, I would have thought. And then the judge will sum up the case. Again, that's going to take, I would say, definitely more than a day. And then the jury retire and have to go through every single charge, every single count of attempted murder and every count of murder, and reach a decision. So you can start to see how, even when all the evidence has been given and presented in court, it is going to be a very, very long trial. So the predictions are May, mid-May, but I think, it could go on longer than that. Also remember, what happens if the jury don't reach a decision? Well, then that's called a hung jury, and the jury would be discharged, they would be dismissed, and then the prosecution would ask for a retrial. They may not be granted that permission, but they would, I'm sure in a situation like this, in a case like this, they would definitely ask. So tune in next week to see what's happened in court.